Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our live virtual event, Show Love to Your LPs, Enhance Your Relationships with Technology. I'm Jeff Williams, Chief Strategy Officer of Altvia. I've got with me a couple of outstanding guests, Julie Newman, Managing Director at Altera Investments, and Jenna Greenspan, Capital Development Director at Redesign Health. I've got some slides. I'll leave those names and titles up for just a second. In just a second, we're going to give it just a minute here. Webinars are one of those things people kind of filter into shortly after they begin. So we'll take just a second here, let some people come in. I'm kind of watching who's here. I am also watching the questions. So for those of you who are already with us, please don't hesitate to ask questions here. For some of those who are familiar with my typical background, the question's bound to come up. Where are the guitars? Guitars did not get invited to the webinar today, unfortunately. Maybe next time. All right, I'm going to share my screen here, like I promised, and we will get a look at our panelists. All right, here we are. We'll go ahead and get kicked off. Thank you all for joining us. We're so grateful that you're taking the time. Let me go back real quick here to just kind of a lightweight agenda. So we weren't going to let February go by without bringing the love thing back here one more time on the last day of the month. And appropriately so, we're here to talk about kind of what's going on with GPLP dynamics, fundraising dynamics, and ultimately, the technology's role in supporting that relationship. So we'll spend a few minutes here. We're very fortunate that both Jenna and Julie have been out in the market and have firsthand experience on kind of what's going on out there. So we'll talk a little bit about the dynamics and what's going on with the relationship generally. Talk a little bit about the importance of transparency, which is a big theme in those dynamics. We'll talk about technology's role, of course. That's where we're coming from, albeit as a software provider that is focused on providing solutions for the GPLP dynamic. And then we'll look at the future, and we've got a brief little demo here for those of you joining us today. Definitely want to emphasize Q&A. So please do use the chat feature in Crowdcast to jump in at any point and ask anything. We'll keep an eye on that. So please jump in. Go back real quick and formally introduce you to our panelists. So again, Julie Newman, Managing Director at Altera Investments, Jenna Greenspan, Capital Redevelopment Director at Redesign Health. Yeah, why don't we take a minute and have you introduce yourselves? Maybe talk a little bit about your firm, a little bit about your background, help everybody get to know you. Julie, do you want to kick us off first?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Hi, I'm Julie Newman, Managing Director at Altera Investments. We are a lower middle market private investment firm. We invest across private equity, real assets, private credit. My role with the company, I've been here almost since the beginning. I run operations, I run compliance. I've been responsible for setting up systems and process around fund accounting, marketing, investor relations. I'm a little bit of everything. So that's it.
Good. Thank you. Jenna?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for that, Jeff. Jenna Greenspan here at Redesign Health. We are a company creation platform that builds healthcare software and service businesses from the ground up. And then we allocate our LP capital as formation capital to all the businesses that we launch off of our platform. I have been with Redesign about 2.5 years now. I lead our investor relations function, so everything from our fund accountants, our controllers, to portfolio reporting, as well as do fundraising for all the vehicles that we raise. Prior to Redesign Health, I was at Apollo Global Management on their client and product solutions team across their platform, really focusing on their operations for investor relations.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, I mentioned both of you are in the market currently. Let's just start right there. I kind of had just taken a look at this Private Equity International report, and I think that's the point. Ultimately, you get these reports, and it's sort of year on year fundraising's down from prior years, which had been kind of consistently setting records. What's it like outside of a chart or a sort of industry report? What's it like out there? Where are there opportunities? Where are there struggles? Kind of just generally give us a report from the road. Jenna, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, happy to. I think there's a big mix, which is hard to capture in a chart or graph, as you mentioned. There are folks on one end of the spectrum who believe, which is similar to what Redesign Health believes, that 2023 vintages will be some of the best vintages that we'll see. Historically, funds that have been launched or deployed in a downturn have historically outperformed. So we believe that this is kind of a great time to launch, and there are certain LPs who are leaning in today's market and looking for differentiated managers who are willing to deploy capital. However, not going to pretend that it's all rosy out there, because we all know the reality is that there are a lot of people who have been burned by the market in the past year and a half, and their allocations are either paused for privates, or they are just waiting for a reset. Maybe they need some distributions, they need some DPI from some of their other commitments before they can commit to another GP. So those are the people who have either told us, or we're hearing that they just want to wait a little bit. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, but that they have a mandate from the top to pause their private early stage venture allocations. And then you have, of course, as usual, people who are somewhere in the middle, who maybe they have one slot to replace a GP this year, and that's all they're going to do. So maybe they'll make 1 or 2 investments this year, which is a lot less than they would historically.
Yeah. How about for you, Julie? What are you saying? What's going on for you?
We're seeing some changes and some shifts for sure. We have a pretty broad LP base. We have some more sophisticated family offices all the way down to, RIAs with high net worth clients that are just kind of getting into the game of private markets. We're seeing a lot of interest in private credit. We're still seeing interest in real estate and growth equity. Last year was a huge year for us. It was just rapid fire commitments all year long. People have definitely slowed down, but what I've seen is, people are making larger, more intentional commitments. They're kind of looking for more niche investments where they can kind of attach to the story a little bit more and understand, what the return profile is, and it aligns with their allocation preferences for, their private portfolio.
Yeah. I think in our prep call, Julie, you mentioned that one of the things that's new for you guys this time around is an investor relations function. So, tell us a little bit about the evolution there. Where did that come from? It sounds like, I think you'd mentioned, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you'd mentioned that, some of the investments are pretty complex. And so there's an element of sort of helping LPs understand. And ultimately where I want to go to and bring Jenna in is like, what's the sentiment amongst existing LPs versus kind of net new LPs? So tell us a little bit about the evolution of the kind of investor relations function. What was behind that?
Yeah, happy to. So we started out with more of like an investor services role and building our database around that and building our processes around that. And we're evolving to a more, pure form of investor relations where we're trying to collect as much information as we can our investors, and develop really meaningful relationships with them, and try to anticipate their needs, and obviously we can't do that without a database like Alvia. It's changed the way that we do business. We have a lot more insights into trends, and I think you're talking about, our campaign to provide like investor education probably is what we talked about. Mm-hmm. We're constantly shifting with the audience. I mean, we have some, like I said before, we have some sophisticated investors that I don't necessarily need to explain reporting cadences to, or, why there's a delay in an investment update, and stuff like that. But we also have, we service investors that are like 5 million to 100 million. And some of our investors, they want to understand the breakdown of reporting. They want to understand what to expect along the way with private investments. I mean, they're locking up money for extended periods of time.
Mm-hmm. Jenna, talk about, kind of existing investor sentiment, maybe kind of, what was almost implied there is there's just maybe a new level of, existing investor. There's more questions. And I think you had mentioned, seeing something similar, Jenna.
Yeah, I think that's definitely right. We are seeing investors demand a little bit more, reporting on a little bit more frequently. So maybe we did it twice a year. Now they would like it quarterly, for example. Things like that, where they're looking to do, I think it's largely driven by folks out there who are looking to do an assessment of all the investments in their portfolio and how they're performing so that they can determine their capital allocation strategy for the next 12 to 18 months. And so we've definitely been seeing an increase in requests about cost basis, about DPIs, about projected distributions, about fund target returns, capital deployment, et cetera. And so, of course, we're using Alvia for that. I've been able to see the evolution of that from the past 2.5 years. When I started, we were implementing it. And so we've used it to streamline those communications to things as simple as who's the right legal contact to get legal and tax docs to things as extreme and helpful as here's a snapshot of all of your investments that you have with Redesign. Here's how every individual investment has performed, line by line about the performance of each of them. And so we're really using that as a tool to shed a bit of light onto the portfolio's performance.
Yeah. Y'all are already talking about Alvia without me even asking. I love that. So I do want to talk a little bit more about Alvia here. No, what I want to get at is, there's all sorts of dynamics going on, right? Like, what Alvia does not do is investment decisioning. We aren't going to, make your investments for you, and we aren't going to, provide massive returns, automatically for you. However, there's a lot of kind of relationship building. There's going out finding new LPs. There's educating existing LPs and processing all sorts of requests and data. I mean, let's talk just a little bit. I mean, Jenna, I think as we prepped, you had mentioned maybe there's quite a bit of pain in that typically, right? Like, previous roles, which you don't have to get into, but I have my own experience with that. It can be pretty painful. Is it the case that like people are asking more and more things, and the pain is sort of could otherwise, in the absence of the proper tools, be getting overwhelming out there when you're trying to raise in these conditions?
Yeah, I think that's definitely right. I mean, particularly like you mentioned, we're out in the market now. We're leading a team. We just kicked off our fundraise. And so part of what we're trying to do is keep stock of all the potential prospective investors that we've spoken to, all of the people that we would like to speak to for any given reason, because they've been referred to us, or because we know they do early stage venture, or because we think they are interested in healthcare for us specifically. And so I think what we're looking at now is, how do you organize all of those? How do you help prioritize? How do you make sure that you are responsive to requests, that if all of the same LPs are giving you a decline for X, Y, and Z reason, or they are asking this certain question, how do you kind of better equip your internal teams and the ones who are out there selling the fund and really doing the fundraising to make sure that they are prepared, to make sure that everyone's speaking from the same playbook, to make sure we're not kind of reinventing the wheel every time we go out for a pitch or for an on-site DD session, for example. And so I think there's really a level of operational efficiency that needs to happen in-house. I mean, think about, even you could have two people sitting right next to each other, both cold emailing the same prospect, and that's obviously not very credible for the GP. And so there's definitely, as GPs scale, there's a level of organization and efficiency that needs to be there in order to attract the level of LPs that we would all like.
Yeah. How about for you, Julie? You kind of mentioned it with sort of a database and stuff like that. We do have a question too. By the way, I want to acknowledge that question. We're going to get to it here in a second. But let's talk just a little bit more, Julie. I mean, what you're getting a lot of requests as well, and like, how are you handling that? Where's the role for technology in that for you?
I mean, honestly, without the technology, we'd be in trouble. We've got to track. We experience LPs that go through estate planning, for instance. That happens in some of our investor database. And, we've got to be able to track the original investment down to what it was transferred to. I mean, that's just one example. Wire details for distributions. I mean, our whole due diligence process, our whole pipeline exists in Altvia. It's a system that, because it was created by people who do what we do in some capacity, it's got a lot better structural tracking. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in the early phases of our business, probably in the first year when we were still kind of tracking investors in a spreadsheet, and then we graduated to like a baby CRM. I'll call it that, because it was like a teeny tiny CRM. I would be continuously getting questions from the business development team of like, where are we with this? How much capital has been called from this? How much has been distributed from this? And like, people, in order to develop relationships with LPs and build trust and continue to bring them back and want to continue to build their, at least their lower market portfolio with us, like, we've got to have the information ready and available. And whether that's like, I literally live in Altvia. I just had like probably 10 tabs pulled up before we got on this call. But, whether it's like, I've got an investor wanting to know when their next investment update is, I have the ability to share some notes from the most recent call with the sponsor. I've got the ability to track people's investment preferences historically, like I mentioned before, to find out if they would be interested. If somebody's invested across 5 different real estate funds and we have a new fund we're going to market with, that person's going to want to see it. And just, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Love that. 10 tabs. What a data point. You're addicted, huh? I want to talk a little bit about like what's the difference that stuff makes, and I don't want to imply that technology driven IR strategy will just go out and raise money for you. I don't think that will ever be the case, right? I think people,
that'd be great.
It would be great, right? Maybe somebody will. I doubt it, because I think there's an important part of the relationship, right? I mean, there's these sort of dating applications that have totally changed how individual personal relationships work over the last 20 years or so. But but it's typically a matter of people, just still getting to know each other and introducing and stuff like that. So what is the difference that the technology makes here in this market? Like, from my background early on in my career, I felt like waiting on GPs for 3 weeks for a basic request. There's some kind of signaling in there, and sometimes track records can make up for that. But what do y'all think? Like, what is the difference? I mean, certainly there's, sounds more efficient, more time you have to actually do some work and not do reporting and stuff. But let's hear it from you. I mean, what's the difference?
So I was gonna actually talk about the time point that it frees up your time and helps you with where to prioritize. So a very good example is our team had a thesis that cold outreach could be helpful for us, and that we have a lot of existing investors, but maybe we should try a wave of cold outreach. But we didn't have any real way to actually track that or to prove that it was making a difference. Similar thing with conferences. We had some people who felt like conferences were a great way to meet LPs, and some people who had it different. So we decided to just start tracking it. And so we can actually track through Alvia the source of where all of our leads came from. And so over time, you could start to see how that will actually pick up and give us really valuable insight for during a fundraise. Where should you be spending time? Should you be working with existing investors to uncover those leads? Should you be going out in the market? Should you be prospecting more? And it actually really helps us organize our efforts as a capital development team, because we're still lean. And you could go down a rabbit hole of meeting all these people and doing all this research to uncover certain leads that are not that useful to you. And so we're using it actually as a way to kind of scrape and give us insight into where to spend our time for a fundraise.
Amazing.
Beyond, and of course, the natural reporting piece of it, which is obviously a huge time saver.
Sure. Yeah, and we'll get to that. I've got a little demo on that to give people a sense for what that looks like. But it's amazing, the data-driven approach, right? I mean, there's a lot of opinions about a lot of things, and certainly this is one of them. But pretty interesting to be able to see kind of how that's measured. While we're there, I do want to take this question because you kind of took us into it, Jenna. The question: best way to convert cold LP leads without coming across as naggy. I don't know if. Well, I'll let you guys answer. What do you think?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest struggles of our industry, and I don't know that there's any right answer. I think, so long as you have a basic knowledge of the person on the other end that you're reaching out to and kind of what they're interested in, you can try different approaches. You can try, just sending them educational materials. I mean, it's hard to figure out how to communicate with cold LP leads, but it's not impossible. I mean, consistency is key. And I think, there's aggressive ways of reaching out to people, and there's a little more graceful ways of reaching out to people and just trying to get their attention. And I think, we've shifted, I've at least shifted away from the aggressive approach. Like I get stuff in my inbox on a daily basis. Invest in this, invest in this, invest in this. There's some funds that they're just out there, and they don't know anything about me. They don't really know any of my investment preferences. They just want money in the door. And I understand that, and I respect that. It, along with the transparency that investors are looking for, like, I think they're looking to have a relationship with the people that they're giving their money to. Because, I mean, private investments, your money's locked up for extended periods of time, and like it's important to soften them up to build trust, so to speak.
Yeah. Jenna, thoughts on that?
I think that's right. And I also think, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you're cold emailing someone at the start of a fundraise, it's likely too late. And so the best way to, in my opinion, sound not naggy is to exactly what Julie was saying, to send them a piece of content, to invite them to your investor day when you're not fundraising, to actually go to their city just because you're in town and you're going to tell them. I got a cold email the other day, which I actually thought was nice. And it said, I've planned a trip to New York. I've blocked off 2 days to meet with potential prospective. Here's a link to my calendar, and I'm allocating an hour slots. And so I thought that was just a very nice way to be able to meet someone in person. They weren't asking me for anything, just to start getting to know me. And so unfortunately, you have to be in it for the long game. And so there's not really any quick wins or quick hacks. And so I would say start your pre-marketing 12 months earlier, and they'll see your name and they'll see you and they'll have some sense of what you're up to. And to the extent, not everyone has this, but to the extent you have a LinkedIn post, you can push through, or you have something on PitchBook or Preqin that you can get to the top, just so people hear your name. To Julie's point, there's so many things we're getting pushed to us all the time, and you just want people to associate your name with something positive or an investment strategy that they're open to, so that you actually can send them your marketing materials when it's time to fundraise.
Yeah. Excuse me. One of the things that we're super interested in as far as technology goes on this front is attempting to measure, activity. I think there's, signal maybe is a word that's being increasingly used to kind of represent this concept of like what sort of signals happening. I'm going to go there and bring the sort of dating thing back here. This isn't the first time I've used this analogy, so I'll stick with it. But, maybe they accidentally liked a post or something, and so that's not necessarily accidentally liking a post directly correlated, but maybe there is a piece of content that you've provided proactively, or maybe there's even some potential data packs that you've provided via, technology, and the ability to start to measure those things kind of provides the opportunity to maybe not be so naggy and to wait for, some sort of signal from the investor that they're taking some action. And now, hey, maybe this is an appropriate time to give them a call and see if I can answer any questions. Or I love that trip planning thing as well. That's something that we hear a lot from our clients, and have provided some functionality around of, kind of cohorting people and trying to be as efficient with in-person visits as possible. Let's talk about, I guess let's go a little deeper on that. So both of you, I would consider, pretty forward-thinking firms in terms of kind of the strategy you've taken for portals and things like that. We'll talk a little bit about, what y'all are doing with technology we provide you with, but what's that role like? I guess, so portal, data room, I don't like those terms because, in many cases, what we're talking about is this sort of single continuous relationship with existing LPs that then, start to get new content about a fundraising and stuff like that. But let's just talk generally, thoughts on, technology's role there. I mean, history with them. I mean, is it the sort of thing where it's necessary evil? Are there opportunities there? What are you guys' thoughts on that? Maybe Jenna, if you want to start us off here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, the technology that we're providing for our LPs is super integral. And so we have what we call our portal. And I think, thank you for calling us forward thinking, because it definitely is something that we pride ourselves on. But you could see a world where we as a GP are just providing some documents to our investors. And it's just they come in and they grab their documents and they download and they get off. We, of course, do that. And that's what everyone needs. And their capital account statements are there and their quarterly letters are there, et cetera. But we wanted to take it a step further for two reasons. So one reason is we kept getting inbounds, right when we launched. We heard people saying, what's my exposure? I don't even remember how big my commitment is to you guys, or what's the return? What am I actually invested in? So we obviously needed to make that scalable because we couldn't be responding one-off to every request. And the second piece is we have great performance. And so I think it's something that we should continue to highlight. And if you're in that position, which you're fortunate to be so in today's market, you want to be showing that. So we actually built out a custom built dashboard on the Altvia site. And so in a separate tab where LPs are coming in to see their documents, they're actually clicking on a tab that we call their analytics tab, where it actually analyzes their investment. And so it says the date they invested, the company round they came in, what their equity value is of that investment, for example. And so that's how we think of their snapshot. And so when we originally launched, we were a little bit conservative in who that went to, and maybe it was only the investment professional, or maybe it was only the tax accountant. But now we use that as the one-stop shop for every person at the end, at the LP that we're speaking to get access to that. And so my team manages all those inbound requests. And if someone has a request that they continuously ask, we come on with them, we give them a training of it, we send them screenshots of the portal, we make sure that they're fully aware. And we even do the types of things that you would see a customer service business do, which is what else would you like to see on this portal? What else information is helpful for you to see, and how can we make sure you're getting there as we think about our next evolution, or as Investor Portal 2.0, for example. And so that's been a way where we've heard people say that even just the launch of that, it takes them into a different position. And for a company like Redesign, which is only 5 years old, which is fairly short in the life of a GP, right? Compare that to companies that have been around 25, 30 years. They're actually getting more data right from the start, which is almost an easier point of entry for that relationship.
Yeah. You mentioned, do you have a sense, Jenna, a total guess is appropriate here, but like, what would maybe be the estimate for what, like, the sort of burden that's been reduced? Like, people keep asking for the same thing, and when it's just there and they're sort of perusing the portal or the data room, however you want to refer to it, they see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because there was nothing. And so I think people were kind of used to your point, us saying we don't have the answer, or a really long lag time. That was a lot of manual data gathering. And so since we launched, we've hired a bunch more people, which allows them to do other things and not be spending 2 days to send out one capital call. It limits, obviously, mistakes, because we were and if there's any compliance people, close your ears, we were literally sending capital calls by hand and making every single individual one. And so that's obviously could even delay a capital call, for an example, of something if we weren't ready to go that day, or if someone was out sick. And so there's definitely been a significant burden, but it also allows us to just scale and ramp up much faster. And when you speak to someone gave us this advice, which I think resonates, when you want to attract capital from institutional LPs, you have to look like an institution. And so you need to look and feel like one. People will ask in their diligence questionnaires, what do you do? How do you do your fund reporting? And we actually have that as an answer that will likely be checked. Compliance will check it, and it's just part of how someone will invest with us. So I do think it's not a stretch to say that could inform someone's investment decision with you.
Yeah, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It sounded to me like you said there's maybe a sort of table stakes element there, right? Where institutionals are sort of like, just can't. I even go back 15 years, that was my experience where, walk us through your process. And I was like, well, we, kind of write a check, and that's about it. And that's a little worrisome as you start to attract more and more institutionals that are coming here. But it also sounded like maybe there's some sort of differentiation in there too. Like, people are sort of like, ooh, this is, different. I'm not accustomed to not having to ask for this, or, I expected it would have taken a week to get that. Fair? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely fair.
How about you, Julie?
We also implemented a dashboard. We've kept it a little oversimplified as we've kind of adjusted to what it is our LPs want to see. It has been so great because it's not just that, the investor can go to the analytics tab and go see a snapshot of, all of their commitments, their top 5 commitments, how they're allocated across different asset classes, breakdowns of distributions between a return of capital and a gain. The advisory firms that we work with, those financial advisors through that dashboard are empowered to, they do a review with their client. They can print it out and slide it in the back of their portfolio review with their public assets and everything. And that's been a game changer for us. We don't work with a ton of RAs, but they too need tools just like the direct LP does. And, owning the capital call and distribution process has been a game changer for us. I am a fanatic about like streamlining things, making them consistent, making the presentation nice. And, we have, I think we have like 45 closed funds. And we work with 3 different fund administrators, and all of it looked different. The reporting looked different. The notices look different. And since we've taken over that process, and it's feeding all of the capital data, like capital activity data into the system, we're empowered even more to, provide performance, and provide more insights into what is going on with your investments. And I think a lot of people, private investments have become more and more popular recently. And I think a lot of people still have some hesitation because there's been historically like a lack of clarity on what's going on, but if you have somebody with the right information that's, not only displaying it to you in a dashboard. I mean, the documents are great. I like being able to filter them by category, but also, be able to help you build a portfolio, be able to, answer questions significantly faster than we would be able to. And like to the topic before, educate some people that are newer to private markets, what to expect.
Yeah. Interesting. You mentioned the RIAs, and they need information too. Well, ultimately the information that their clients get in other asset classes is totally different, right? And that, I mentioned that because that's always been sort of a key driver for us in terms of a vision is why not here too, right? And what sort of opportunities and differentiation does that sort of provide? What do you hear from those folks? Do you hear, and nothing's okay, because I'll tell you, as we've been working on these LP facing products over the years, there are times when people say we don't really hear much from LPs, and we get really worried that they don't. And then the client says, no, that's actually great, because we used to just hear all sorts of complaints, about not being able to log into the portal or find what they're looking for. What sort of stuff do you hear, if anything?
From the RAs or from LPs?
From anybody, yeah.
From LPs, we don't actually hear a whole lot. It's more of our LPs that are associated with an RA that tend to have more questions.
Yeah.
But again, having the tools available to provide education. I mean, we do education with all of the RAs that we work with to try to train their advisors on, what to expect, how to explain it. I think one of the things that most advisors have appreciated is getting CPAs access to K1s.
Ooh.
K1s are a
Timely,
huge pain point in our industry. And, basically, we've been able to not just set up the CPA with access to the K1 so that they're in direct, they're communicated with directly at the same time the investor is when they're available, but also, with the dashboards, being able to break down a return of capital versus a gain, it can help the CPAs work with their clients to do estimates, for tax payments. Everybody's got to file extensions. That's been a huge win for us. But I mean, we also utilize the data room. You don't like calling it an investor portal in a data room, and I get that. I kind of like a little bit of distinction, because there are people who will have access to our data room that are, they're prospective investors. They haven't participated with us yet, or they're a family office, or they're a new RIA that's, looking to get into private investments. They have, our due diligence materials. They have, we prepare marketing decks for them. And there's different phases of access, or different levels of access that are available depending on, where you sit in our relationship, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an appropriate use, to be fair. I guess my complaint about the distinction is that isn't it just all one big relationship, right? And certainly people have differing needs for information. Well, on that note, I might actually take us into a brief demo because I think that y'all have the two of you have seen this, but it might be slightly new to you. Because as it turns out, this is some stuff that not only we've been working on for years, but we're about to launch some new stuff on this front. And so I do want to, for the folks that are joining us today, thank you so much and appreciate the questions. Please do, if you have additional questions, jump in there now. We'll take a few minutes here shortly and address questions very openly. But I do want to give those folks a sense for kind of some of the stuff that we're talking about here. We unfortunately can't show your real portals and data rooms. That would be perhaps interpreted as solicitation, which this most certainly is not, to be clear. But we do have a sort of visual for this. We talked a lot about it. I didn't necessarily expect that, but I want to show this. So I will pull up my screen here and give people a sense for kind of what some of this stuff looks like. Again, while I'm doing that, please do jump in and ask questions here. So I want to just provide folks a sense of this is one of our products, Share Secure. It's kind of portal data room. And of course, again, this is a demo environment here, but I wanted to point out for the viewers here, some of the things that we're referring to. So I think you both had mentioned, the ability to kind of provide investors with self-serve format for, capital account information here. And give this just a second. It doesn't typically take long to load, but there's a number of use cases here. We've been talking about them. So, existing investors, providing them with information that they're looking for. That's a huge one that can save people a lot of time. Let me refresh this here. Y'all mentioned it. Instead of having to kind of take the time to respond to these requests, providing them proactively saves that time, enables people to do other things with that time. Also impresses people too. Let's try another one here. But beyond that, here's an interesting one. And this one is neat. I love this one because couple of years back, one of our large, well-known Silicon Valley venture firms led their fundraise with kind of data room analytics experience, much like this one, which was effectively just the amalgamation, if you will, of that sort of track record file everybody provides in Excel. Here's the investments we've made. Here's who made them. Here's where the companies are located. So we didn't necessarily take any information that they weren't already sharing. It just was really about changing the experience for the investor in terms of how they consumed it. And so what this got them into was the ability to kind of create a conversation, create some self-serve kind of, drilling. And it certainly looks very institutional ready, right? Sort of the ability to click on a certain geographic sector, for example, and start to kind of understand, what sorts of investments are in there. The table down below here, we've got, the breakout of sort of what companies those were, out of which funds, who led them, certain sectors, things like that. I'll just kind of add to that. You can click on the consumer software, the big part of this chart. And now all of a sudden we're sort of getting right down to a couple of investments. Now, one of the things that we're sort of doing here in order to enable that kind of self-serve, fully integrated experience is allowing the investor to take this with them in certain forms, as is appropriate for, sort of diligence, workflows, what have you. So it was really cool to see this because it was a leading early stage technology driven firm who felt like they needed to live up to, kind of using modern technology as well. But it was super cool because I started to hear in very roundabout ways from folks that, that go back to early in my career, like, oh, have you seen what so-and-so is doing with their data room? And it was sort of like, I have. That's actually the technology that we built to do that. And those people weren't aware of that. So that was kind of cool to come full circle there. So you've got the sort of just examples of these things, right? So you two mentioned, more or less kind of things that you're doing in this vein. The applications of the technology are fairly limitless. So a couple of examples in here. We've got that sort of fundraising diligence pack. We've got some sort of underlying portfolio company information. I think, Jenna, you had called out, specifically asking, like, what else can we show, and trying to create, like, true engagement points for the investor with the technology. So, kind of really understanding what's in the portfolio, where are there maybe distributions that are coming, right, in this market. Be helpful, to be able to tell a story of near-term distributions, and therefore the case for making another commitment to the follow-on fund. Let's see if we can go up and get the internet to comply here real quick with the capital account thing. There we go. Here we are, this sort of self-service, sort of capital account detail. If we need to take this for, purposes for our own internal, analysis or models as the LP. Got that. You've got the ability to kind of take these things to charts as well for the investor. So really trying to kind of deliver that experience that not only is modern and differentiated and helpful to y'all in terms of saving time, but also one that's kind of, a little more consumer-like and what people expect from technology and other asset classes. You guys have seen this. That's not anything new per se. Let me share another thing here real quick, and we will take a look at something that is new. And that's going to, let's see. No, I cannot find out how to share that other thing. Let's hold out here for some questions. Please do jump in, y'all, and I'm going to take a second. And here we go. Question: what was the light bulb moment in the buying process to make your firm choose Altvia? Oh, that's a great question. Thank you so much. I had a chance to interact with y'all more or less as you're going through that, but love to hear a little bit more about that. Julie, what was sort of light bulb moment for you? You came from the baby CRM.
Well, that's not the whole story. So we came from the baby CRM, and then we swung to the opposite side and went with the Salesforce Financial Services, like massive program that was new. It was not for private investment firms, not in any capacity. It was more built for large banks, large RIAs maybe, but not for us. And then, I think our CEO is the one who mentioned you guys. They had been doing diligence on another sponsor, and they utilized your system. And we reached out, and I had my first call with Craig, and I can't remember the gentleman's name. And it made sense. And, since then we've put a majority of our data in your system. We also previously used another system for our investor portal. So I've had the experience of having those two things sit separately without any kind of data feed set up between the two. And it becomes very manual, very painful. Many sleepless nights wondering if the data in there is correct. So that's been a game changer for us as well.
Yeah. Jenna, how about for you? Were you part of the buying process, or just talk a little bit about that? I know you had historical experience with other portals as well.
Yeah. The main deal breaker for us, or selling point for us, was the functionality that you guys call the IC batches, or the investor correspondence services. So for us, it was really that capital call and distribution process. We needed a way, like I mentioned, to scalably, as we onboarded new LPs and new funds, to create documents and push them out, kind of click of a button and post them to a central site. And so the integration with how we were kind of saving down investor commitments, and then actually the system being able to allocate capital calls directly, leveraging that, generating PDFs, and then sending it out and posting them to the document portal was really kind of the solution that we needed to get us started. And then, of course, everything else was kind of the bells and whistles. Bells and whistles were nice to have, but that was kind of the real solver that solved our true pain points at the time.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that was perfect, because I did, if you're following along here, I did figure out how to stop sharing that screen. And now I'm going to share what I promised to share, which is just, kind of slightly ahead of a formal launch of, some new concepts here in this kind of evolving GPLP dynamic. So, one of the things we're hearing from folks, and we're super excited to get into it, is kind of the evolution, I would say, from, you both mentioned it started out almost as like document abuse, right? It was sort of like, here's a bunch of documents, go fumble through the portal and, figure out how to download them all, and then, kind of be on your way. It evolved to a, kind of what we had just been looking at, which is sort of like a modern kind of self-service experience. I would categorize where we feel the market's now headed into like a full-blown, kind of content management system. I think that's appropriate for what we've been talking about here, right? It's sort of an ongoing relationship. It never really ends. Existing investors want more information. Potential new LPs come in and want all sorts of information. But, the sort of opportunity to engage them and create an actual experience, I think you used the words, Jenna, kind of customer service like experience. And so one of the things that we're super excited to get into is the ability to kind of control a little bit like that along the kind of content management system, CMS, if you will, concept of control over some of, what these pages look like. I'm kind of flipping through a couple of concepts that change this around, but the idea would be that, you're starting to kind of be able to control all sorts of different material that's appropriate for certain people kind of coming in here. You'll notice some ability, for example, to see upcoming events, right? I mean, I think that cold email or, cold lead question earlier, right? Maybe there's an event that you can catch their attention and sort of streamline the process of RSVPing and what have you. So super excited, about introducing sort of some control over it, highlighting maybe some news from the firm, maybe from portfolio companies specifically, and calling out, certain documents that might be sort of more attention. So we're super excited. You've got a sort of redesign of some of these screens that we had seen previously, starting to kind of surface more specific content to LPs, allowing them to maybe kind of pin certain things, or for you to highlight maybe featured content for folks. So, very much, something that, we feel is sort of inevitable, I guess I'll say, that there's opportunities to kind of create this customer service like experience for people, and to do it with technology while they're on their own time, and to put feelers out there and measure the signals and things like that. So anyway, super excited about that. It feels like it's all stuff that we've kind of more or less been talking about here, and to the point of the webinar today, kind of ways to kind of show love and create opportunities with LPs and to use technology to kind of improve that experience. One quick question. We've got about 7 minutes here, and love this one. Take it real quick, and then if there aren't any others, please do jump in if you're holding on to a question here. Could you please speak a little bit about how Altvia's service and support has impacted your experience with our solution? So, Julie, I know you keep calling out Craig I know you love Craig, and I know Craig loves you. Talk to us a little bit about your experience in working with our team.
Yeah, you guys are my favorite vendor.
Oh,
You really
you.
and truly are. From the beginning, from the initial implementation to helping support us and build out, custom objects, custom workflows. Your support team, I mean, even beyond Craig, has been great. They're very responsive. I've worked with some vendors that, it'll take them 48 hours to get back to me. And I don't really have the patience for that. Like if it involves,
Does anybody
something,
have the patience for that?
well, I mean, nobody does really naturally, but like most of
Yeah.
the time, the request is centered around something that an investor needs or an answer I need to bring to the leadership team, for us to discuss as a group. And so the response time has been great. I mean, the support is honestly the number one reason why we moved past just having the CRM piece and moved on to having the investor portal and using it to do our IC batches like Jenna's talking about. I am of the mindset that if you have a central brain, so to speak, of your business that contains all of the most important data, like you can leverage that and integrate it where needed. And then, I mean, that's kind of become the next phase for us is we've been talking with Craig and our support team about, an integration with an e-signature platform and setting that up so that we can, preserve our data and make sure that we're going through a really smooth onboarding experience with our LPs. So, and I don't say that for everybody listening. I literally don't say this about any vendor. So don't think that I'm here just blowing smoke for Jeff.
Well, I love Craig too. I should have added that. We all love Craig. So that's how I know that, that you're not. Jenna, your experience?
Yeah, so definitely echo everything that Julia was saying. We actually, for a while, and anyone who's kind of worked at a startup or a GP that's a little bit earlier in their infancy will appreciate that sometimes it's hard to get internal tech support kind of aligned with your future vision. And so for a very long time, we did not have an in-house Salesforce admin. We that's actually recently just changed. We did not have kind of like the infrastructure to set up our enterprise CRM. And as everyone knows, we couldn't slow down our fundraising efforts because of that. So we really, truly have used Alvia and Craig and his team as kind of our solution to that. We did finally recently just hire kind of in-house IT tech support to help us with the enterprise CRM, and Craig and his team were training them on how we use the system. And so that kind of tells you all you need to know about how ingrained they are within our organization, and how much we've been able to use them really to bounce ideas off of each other to help us. And sometimes I'll call them and tell them that we have a problem and I would like them to kind of propose a solution to me, knowing all the pieces, and we'll react and work on things together. So it's definitely been a partnership from day one.
Yeah. Well, thank you for those kind words. Thank you, Craig. We're going to get Craig on these webinars going forward. He's the real star. I'll take just one last question real quick and I'll answer it. What enhancements are you adding to the analytics module? So we're super excited. There's actually some new stuff coming there too. I didn't necessarily show it, but I think the simplest way of saying it is kind of data visualization, storytelling. So imagine, the ability to kind of use sliders and sort of make maybe assumptions about what might be in the data, or kind of actual interfaces that sort of navigate you through a series of kind of data visualizations that tell a story. So we think that's super cool. We've used the term story here a lot. Y'all are ultimately telling a story, and so we think it's appropriate to start to enable, kind of data stories and ways to kind of tell those stories in the data via technology as well. So that's something that's coming to somewhere near you soon as well. But do reach out to us if you'd like to talk more about that, alvia.com. Listen, so thankful to you both, Jenna and Julie. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights. thank you for all of you who joined us here today. Again, please do reach out to us and love to kind of get your thoughts. So reach out to us at altvia.com. Thank you again, ladies, and good luck out there. We're looking forward to kind of hearing about the continued success. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, everybody. Take care. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.